Hello modelers, John back with the 16 by 8. This is part 2 of me using sawdust to make ground cover. I'm going to do the mix right here and I'll show you, there'll be a little break in the clip showing me lay it out to dry. I think in the first clip I mentioned like a 1:5 ratio. I've done some messing around with it a little bit. It's actually a lot more water than that. You don't need as much paint as I originally had thought, because I've made a few mixes just experimenting. That's kind of what took me a little longer, because it's been a couple years since I made any. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to just dump some water in here and start mixing paint with it. I'm using this paint. It's a light green. And I literally just go kind of by eye how much of this I put in it. I'm going to dump a pretty generous amount in it. You want it really watery. That should be enough. That should be enough. And of course, you want to have a garbage nearby. And you keep this handy because you might have to add a little more. Then we're going to stir it up. I always wear gloves. It's water-based paint. It's not a big deal. You can use oil-based, but it'd probably get pretty stinky. It doesn't take much to soak into this sawdust. You only need to mix this a few minutes. All right, not even, well, whatever, just till you see it's mixed. It should remain very watery. I will pour it into here to mix it, because it makes it just easier to stir it up and clean it, and then you can put as much sawdust in there. I just want this to keep, this kind of gives me an idea how much water I'm using. That's actually pretty good right there. I'll take another paper towel and set that on it. You don't really need this, I don't think, much after this. That's a lot of water. My wife would kill me if this fell on the floor. All right, then I just start taking this stuff, the sawdust, scooping it out. You can dump it whatever way you want. Let it just drop down in there and soak. Don't worry about the big chunks, because you will sift it later anyways if you want to. You don't have to. And you take your hand, this is where it gets kind of muddy. Take your hand, start moving this around to get the water into all the sawdust so you can kind of see what it's doing. Just like that, and you have to kind of squeeze it. Look at my hand, what I'm doing. I'm kind of squeezing it through so the color comes through. I mean, it's really simple to do this. There's a big chunk, throw that away. I'm going to dump a little more of the rest of the water in. Oh, there's not much left. Yeah, you would just take a container. This is a quart. You know, I filled it half full of water and then I just poured, I don't know, this is a little tiny bit of paint. It doesn't take much paint to color this. You just got to keep doing this for a little bit till you squeeze it through to make sure that all the paint is soaking into the particles really good. I'm even going to add a little more sawdust to this yet because it's a little more soupy than I want. I'm hoping you guys can see this really well. You can kind of see what I got going here, the consistency. Kind of looks like just some kind of a mud compound, like drywall mud or something, that consistency. I'm going to grab a little more, throw in there. And we'll mix that in. And the minute you squeeze it, it pushes the paint right into the wood. And you're going to get some of these little chunks like this. They're going to, well, give you splinters if nothing else. But that you want to, if you see them, pick them up, throw them out. Or like I say, you can later on grind it again. Sift it, grind it, whichever way you want. By the way, someone asked me what kind of grinding bit I used. At the end of this video, there's a picture. I took that grinder apart and took some pictures of it so you can see what the grinding bit looks like. Like I say, just squeeze this stuff through. You can see the water running out, the paint water running out of it. And then what I'll do is I would let this sit, probably after I'm done with doing this. I mean, it's probably even done now, but I'm going to let this sit before I lay it, spread it out. I'll pack it down just to make sure water's all the way through it. This is where you would add a little more if you need it. You can kind of see what I got going here. Kind of see the water squeezing up through here. Let's see if I can get a better angle here. You can kind of see this water, yeah, like that. And that stuff will dry up fast, and this wood is really going to soak it up. So I'll leave it like this, probably, yeah, I suppose 20 minutes or so to let it sit before I put it out on the table to dry, spread it out. Yeah, this is actually pretty wet. I could put a little more in here. Just grab some till you feel it's good. Get rid of that big chunk. You can kind of see how it's already just soaks in the color of the wood does, the sawdust, just by even going like that. Some guys want to do this in a blender. That works too. There's a number of ways. This is just what I've done. And I actually have never seen no one do it this way, but I messed around with this so long and tried so many different ways of doing this, and this seemed to be the best way that I could get the stuff to soak in the best. Now, I do understand there's probably different types of wood. I don't know if every type is water soluble where it's going to soak up the paint. This is just stuff I get from the mill down about a mile from our house. And he says most of this stuff is just kind of mahoganies and oaks and pines and stuff like that. So the lighter woods. The darker ones might not give you the results you want. But then, they might be good for darker landscaping. Again, you can see it kind of coming through as I squeeze the... And when it's like that, if you want, you can add more to it. You can add more stuff, but this is kind of a lot. Believe it or not, when this is dry, this is going to be a lot of ground cover. This would easily fill up one of them big bottles, if not more. Okay, I'd say that's really good. You can even grab it, and you can kind of see it there. There's a couple little light pieces that didn't absorb the paint. And we'll pack her back down there, and I'm going to let it sit. For about 20 minutes, I will shut the camera off, and the next clip I turn on will be me putting it over there on the other side of our basement to dry. I'm going to put a fan on it. So I'm going to see if I can get it to dry in about 6-7 hours. Normally overnight this stuff is dry. It turns into a powder. I go down there from time to time and kind of bust it up a little bit. You can kind of see what I'm doing, just pushing it through. There, that should be it. That's basically all there is to this. I'm going to shut the camera off right now, and I'm going to take this, let her sit in there for about 20 minutes, and we will then at that point, I will take this and turn the camera back on the other side of the house, and I will spread this out and show you how I do that and let it dry. It's very simple. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, now we're going to dump this stuff onto some newspaper. Just take the stuff like this, crumple up, and just sprinkle it around in clumps. You want to kind of spread out a little bit. And like I said, I'm going to turn a fan on. To let it dry, just to see if I can speed up the process and get the end video. The end video, I'm going to just show you what it looks like when it's dry, and then I might sift a little bit. But I might make a little tiny diorama just to show you me sprinkling my own product on a little piece of foam, so you can see it looks like grass or some kind of ground cover, whatever you want to use it for. It could be just a highlight ground cover. It could be the main body ground cover. And I just kind of spread her out. You can do this using, a lot of guys use carpet foam instead of sawdust, and that works really good too. I've done it once, but it did work good. But I kind of like this because it's less work to prepare it. The carpet foam, you got to chop it up first, put it in a blender or some kind of grinder. It works good in a grinder too, but I just feel this works better for me. I'll clean this out, and this will be the sifter I use right here to sift it. Basically, you're doing something like that. So, same thing as usual. And then I'm going to turn the fan on, and we'll see what happens. See how this stuff comes out. I'll see you in my next video.